If you
Okay.
know the Taoist terminology of yin and yang, so with women in the female psychology, I talk a lot about feminine yin and feminine yang. And
Right. Okay.
these are the essential qualities, textures, and virtues that make a woman whole in herself. Although the things that I just named as masculine principle or male energies, I'm kind of intentionally highlighting why a woman might really, really appreciate a man when he has these things in his expression, when he has these things in his embodiment.
The masculine men and masculine in women, right, are different, right? Which
Yeah,
is
so while at the, not in human form, energy world level, essential principles may not be different,
yes.
but embodied through us here in the human realm, through a male body or a woman body, male socialization, female socialization, it's totally different. What a feminine man is in the unhealthy feminine expression in a man, he might have like no vision, no structure, and he's in, just say in a relationship, he's inviting someone into, I don't know what, like he doesn't really know what's
Mm,
and maybe there's a sense around him of you can't really feel the ground, there's not a sense of stability, and he might be pretty wayward with his emotions. And surprisingly to some people, this is a place that men can actually be quite violent, even if they
yes.
appear quite feminine in some cases.
This is an opportunity for the men in our community, and also for myself, and for the women in our community, to really ask some of these, hard-hitting questions, some of these curious questions, especially in this time of our human evolution, especially in this time of our conscious growth, where things are a bit confusing. What was true 100, 150, 1,000 years ago, right? It's not the same way that we are living our life or even running our life anymore.
Welcome to the High Performing Warrior Podcast. My name is Niro, Dayalan. I'll be your host in this journey. And over the last 10 years, I've been working with leaders, with couples, with spiritual seekers, men and women all over the world, helping them achieve the same transformation, win the war that exists inside of us, to gain more clarity, more purpose, more certainty, and to finally step into a world of mental peace and emotional freedom. These podcasts is only a glimpse of the full high-performing warrior training. In these podcasts, you will hear references to the coaches that I have internally. You will hear references to modules and missions. Now, these references or instructions are for the internal tribe, the souls that are participating within the warrior training. And for the listeners, you feel that I'm actually coaching you myself. It's important to me that even though this is a glimpse of the full training, you get an authentic experience. I hope that this episode creates a shift inside of you, even if it's just a little one, just enough to see this world through a new set of eyes, through the eyes of an awakened mind. Because the truth is, your greatest battle is not out there, it's inside of you. And when you face it, when you do the inner work, you don't just survive, you rise. So let's begin.
Warriors, welcome to today. We have the incredible and the beautiful Devashi Shakti that is joining us today, all the way from Bali. I'll talk about how we met in a second, but Devashi is a true pioneer in the realm of feminine biomysticism. Now, we're going to be talking about that in a second. This is something that is fascinating just even to read. She serves as an embodiment psychotherapist, a semantic educator, a guide, and she has more than 20 years of teaching experience. When I first met Devashi, it was actually at an ashram that we both go to, Kriya Yoga Ashram. And, it was this amazing, like, all our minds are just being still. We're in this beautiful location out in Gosford. And straight away, without even talking, I just knew that I needed to be around her presence. I needed to have a conversation with her. I needed to get to know her. It was just an energy that was kind of captivating. And I'm pretty sure that this energy is going to be coming out in today's conversation. One of the things that I'm really excited. I'm really excited here. As many of you know, that we have we've got the Warrior program that you're all enrolled in. Devashi is actually going to be our trainer within the Warrior program. This is fascinating and exciting in this space. Now, not only does Devashi bring a wealth of knowledge in feminine embodiment, yoga, semantic, psychotherapy, her journey has involved a deep exploration of Tantra, bodywork, women's initiation ceremony. Now, this is something that I would love to dive in a bit later. Women's initiation ceremony, assisting individuals and couples, right, in creating a conscious intimacy and bringing that into their lives. She believes that trauma can be a transformative doorway into conscious expansion. And it is our sacred responsibility as men, as women, to live from the embodied feminine or masculine presence. So I'm super excited, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. I felt a resonance with you straight away as well when we saw each other.
Now, I want to dive into some of these questions because, I, for one, have been excited to have this conversation. This is also an opportunity for me. As I was saying before, I'm a bit even though I've invited you to run into the Warrior program, I'm not going to be there, right? I'm not going to be able to experience some of the wisdom that you'd be passing on to our goddesses because this is just for women. And so this is an opportunity for the men in our community, and also for myself and for the women in our community to really ask some of these, hard-hitting questions, some of these curious questions, especially in this time of our human evolution, especially in this time of our conscious growth, where things are a bit confusing. What was true 100, 150, 1,000 years ago, it's not the same way that we are living our life or even running our life anymore. One of the things that I would love to know is, what is the masculine energy and what is the purpose of the masculine energy? And at the same time, what is the feminine energy and what is the purpose of the feminine energy? Sorry to put this big question straight away.
Massive questions. Yeah. And firstly, I love how you had both men and women together in this. And even though you won't be with the women in goddess training, it's I think it's really useful and really helpful for the women to be aware of what the concepts that the men are aligning with and vice versa, because there's just much more understanding and maybe safety that can happen as a result of that. So that's really cool that you want that to happen. Yeah. What is the masculine? My gosh. Also, I want to add that I did work a lot with men, almost only men, for quite a few years, quite a while. And so I feel like I bring a different perspective than maybe some typical women's work out there, because I have a lot of understanding and compassion for a journey that a man has, male psychology, the process that it takes for a man to really learn tantric intimacy, for example, which is what I was doing with the men. And so that put together with the women's work, I think, has it come through in a particular way. And so, yeah, coming back to your question, what is the masculine? I mean, we can talk about that on a transpersonal or archetypal divine level, or we can talk about it on a more human level, which I think is what you're asking mostly.
Yeah, I think if we're talking on a transpersonal level, we'll be here for a very long time.
But I feel they're very, very connected in how I work with it. So
Okay.
I feel to start there actually because the principle, so the masculine principle itself and the feminine principle herself, the more we can align with that and harmonize with that as a man or as a woman, you know, the more healthy and harmonious we can be within us and with each other.
Mm.
So what is the masculine? What is the purpose of the masculine? In terms of interpersonal relationships, I mean, there's so many things that are in common to both man and woman, right? And I'm sure everyone in your community can see that and knows that. So I'll skip over that super basic thing and say what we might really value about a man that's different to a woman, what we might really value about a woman that's different to a man. Starting with a man, you know, it's leadership from a level of intelligence and heart and foresight and vision and grounded strength and power and protection.
Yeah.
I could go on, but they're the things I'm through right now.
Yes. And what we're talking about here is masculine, right? So it's not just about men; it's about the energy in itself. That's what we're talking about here, right?
Well, I kind of am saying more man right now, or because I use slightly different terminology when it comes to healthy masculine qualities for women.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
just to differentiate it a bit, you know, it makes it a bit more specific. If you know the Taoist terminology of yin and yang, so with women, in the female psychology, I talk a lot about feminine yin and feminine yang.
Right.
And these are the essential qualities, textures, and virtues that make a woman whole in herself. So although the things that I just named as masculine principle or male energies, I'm kind of intentionally highlighting why a woman might really, really appreciate a man when he has these things in his expression, when he has these things in his embodiment.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes total sense. I'm just letting it land as you're as you're speaking. Right. So yes. Okay. Cool. So we've got the understanding of the masculine in a man, and I'm super excited to hear the masculine in a female, in a woman. Like how does that differentiate?
Yeah. Well, I might tie this in with the second part of the first question too, with what is feminine and what's the purpose, and I'll weave it together because again, if we say what are some of the characteristics, qualities, virtues, values that a woman, you know, brings differently than a man, or only brings, you know, it only comes through a woman, right? So, you know, we're the givers of life. We literally relate with the mystery directly in order to have human life come through our bodies. And even if it's not an obvious childbirth, reproductive capacity, it's still that energy of giving life, so nurturing and you know, taking care of, tending. There's nuances and textures and subtleties that a feminine, or in this case specifically female, emotional body is so tuned into, and that is a gift and an offering in itself, as long as the woman knows how to navigate that, of course.
Yeah, of course.
And that's an important part of women's work. So there's so many more things that I could say, but
I mean, intuition is another huge thing, right?
Totally.
Like,
And again, both man and woman can have that, right? But there's a level of direct access to the transpersonal, to the earth, to the cosmos, that our female physiology is more already designed to, in the level of receptivity I'm talking about. So deeper than intuition, because we both can have that, I would say embodied receptivity is something that a woman quite uniquely brings, and it's mirrored in our physiology even.
this is okay. So you said intuition and there's receptivity, right? Like, what's the difference here?
Well, receptivity can be from, say, the earth up, the ground up, and also intuition. I see a little bit more in the upper chakras. So, yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay.
But it includes intuition. And if a man is developed in his intuition, it's because he's developed some feminine capacity inside of him, right?
Yes, definitely.
Yes.
Okay. So that's the feminine energy.
Yes,
right?
I want to say more about that as well.
Please.
And this is where I'll start to go into the feminine yin and yang a little bit. And so the broad, full spectrum of womanhood that I work with and that I stand for and teach with women is about equally accepting our softness and our strength, our beauty and our power. And that can be differentiated with the Lilith and Eve psychology that I teach from in somatic psychology. But that's just another way of really talking about the internal polarity, like sensuality, sexuality, fertility, all of that, but also the protectress in woman, the womb guardianship of that direct relationship with the mystery. So one is more internal and maybe more transpersonal, and the other is more human relationship focused.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what components are transpersonal versus the human interaction piece?
Yeah. So if I go back to what I was saying about the Lilith and Eve psychology, so Eve is more relational, and I'm talking about essential things, by the way, not always how people play it out. So right now I'm talking about essential energies, essential principles. Of course, there's a lot of conditioning and social programming on top of all of this, and we can talk about that too. On the human relational level, there's a lot of emotional mastery and relational mastery that a woman can develop through how much subtlety and nuance that she picks up on. And this is like biologically researched, in how a woman's entire energetic system is designed to listen to all of those subtleties to keep, humanity alive in terms of being able to hear and sense and feel certain things that maybe a man is not directly innately listening to in the same way.
Yeah.
So again, it's not just about raising children and keeping children alive. It's on that base level. It's all of that power, all of those resources are tuned into everything that we choose to create.
Okay. Yeah. No, okay.
And that's personal level is more the self-mastery. So I talk about vertical channel and the horizontal channel. The horizontal being humanity, the human world, her own human self, and the vertical channel being more about that transpersonal or Lilith energy, which is very instinctual, very mystical, very cosmic. And coming into a relationship with both is a really powerful journey for women, because some are very typically suppressed and some are very typically encouraged. And there's a big journey for women to go on. And we could talk about the light and dark feminine, and that's all like different language for the same thing.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I've got some questions later on about the light and the dark, and I think we'll come back to that in a second. So coming back to what we mentioned before, right? And I'm trying to get my head around them, and looking forward to learning more in this space. Is when you mentioned that, masculine for the men is actually different compared to masculine for the women. And the reason why I'm asking you this is because right now, once upon a time, the rightly or wrongly, right, the men's role was clearly defined and the women's role was clearly defined. Whereas now, we can almost do everything, right? Like men can do some, not all, of what women can do, right? But women can definitely do a lot of what men can do as well.
Yes.
Right. So the roles are very blended now. However, what you're saying here is that still a male doing masculine is different to a woman doing masculine?
Of course.
Okay,
Of course.
please. Yeah.
I mean, think about it like this in really practical terms. If you're living with your partner, your wife, and children, which I know you have, that's how you live, and an intruder that intends harm comes into your home, what's going to happen? Tell me.
Front line. I'm front line. I'm taking care of everything. Right?
Are you going to be hiding behind her?
Hell no. Although at times she would think that, yes, she'll be the front line, but yes, right? I mean, we intuitively know this, but I don't think we speak into this component much, right?
Yeah.
Please help me understand. Like, we spoke about the men masculine. What about the female masculine?
So the ability for a woman to have that direct relationship with her own clarity, with truth itself, with silence inside, with directly with the void, with the spirit world, in all the different languages you could describe that, inner stillness. These are the really healthy, essential ways, right? But often these powers that are inside get corrupted and twisted in terms of the socialization process that we're born into. And a woman can be quite over masculinized a lot of the time. So she's often using her power inside of her pretty against herself. And maybe even clashing with a man's space to really be the man, say in an intimate relationship.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
And often it's not until a woman really delves into the world of female embodiment and she starts really appreciating her own essential feminine qualities, she realizes, wait a second, that feels incredible. That's where I want to be most of the time. And then she's appreciating more the man for the essential masculine qualities that he brings in the way that he brings it.
Yes. So the whole thing of couples in a relationship, and often it's not because the man is not masculine. When I'm working with couples, and this is not always the case, there's some of the case, I may have, the woman coming in saying, I just want him to start taking more charge, more control, more this. But when I'm speaking to the man, he is, but not in the way that his wife wants it to, like it.
Yes.
Right?
Well, yeah. And I don't know the details of the rest of what
course.
women say to you, but I hear a similar thing a lot from both clients and friends. And so here's a way that people don't always classify as woman being masculine, and it's when she's being over-mothering. So while a woman might complain about a man not stepping up and not taking initiative and, not leading in the way that she would like, not that she's necessarily using that terminology, but she wants him to be more masculine, basically. She probably, and again, it's different in every single situation and the subtleties and nuances of this, but often there isn't a lot of space for a man to come forward and really bring that masculine when a woman is like doing everything for him and literally being more of a mother than a lover. And then she complains about that. And it's like, why do I not want to have sex with this man anymore? It's like, well, are you sexually attracted to your son? I think not.
Yes.
And so there's a process of the woman reeling back in all of that power inside of her that she's been externalizing way too much. When she lets herself back into a state of embodied receptivity, there's so much room for the man to just be the man and be himself.
Yes. 100%. So over-mothering, right, is what, yes. And I guess it's that control side of things that comes with over-mothering, right? It needs to be this way, right? Okay, cool. That makes sense. Yeah. The masculine men and masculine in women, right, are different, right?
So while at the, not in human form, energy world level, essential principles may not be different, but embodied through us in the human realm, through a male body or a woman body, you know, male socialization, female socialization, it's totally different.
Yes.
Which
Okay.
is also what creates attraction. You know, if it were the
Yes.
same, would neutralize, which is also what's behind people losing attraction to each other too.
Because they're so far different, or is it
Because they're trying to be too much the same.
too much the same? Yeah, that makes sense. Right. Let's flip that around. How does feminine in so we understand feminine in a female, right, is that, you know, the intuitive, the receptive, the nurturing, right? Like we see that in a female. So what about feminine in a man, right? I mean, obviously we are both feminine and masculine, right?
Yes.
We've been taught that it's tends to be a scale, right? Some
Yeah.
people are more feminine, right? Some people are more masculine, like, you know, yeah. But
Yes.
and my personal experience and what I've seen, right, whether if you're straight or gay or whatever it is, if you present your feminine qualities, if you're more feminine as a man, if you are more feminine, right, than masculine, you are weak. And there are actually other words that are,
Yeah.
you
Sure.
know, I'm not going to say it here, right?
Yeah.
That you are weak.
Yeah.
That there's something wrong with you as a man if you are more feminine, right, than you are masculine.
Yeah.
Right. So I was wondering if we can actually understand here. So feminine in a woman is different, like how masculine in a woman is different, right? So how is feminine different in a man?
Yeah. Well, firstly, I love range in a man, just like I love range in a woman. You know, it makes us very whole textured beings. And so feminine in a man, the thing that I'm most drawn to in this exploration is really differentiating what's conditioning it within that and what's essentially his essence. Because that's what I really get down to in how I work with people. So is he being more feminine because he's afraid of his masculine, because he is
Yes.
a sensitive being and he's getting all these impressions about the damage that masculine energy has done. And so he's retracting from that capacity in himself and suppressing it? Or is he, because it's so unique with every individual, right? Or is he a man who genuinely, naturally, underneath his programming, underneath his conditioning, has a lot of feminine energy, has a lot of Shakti? And that's a big journey for a man to find out, and likewise for a woman as well.
Yeah, yeah. And what will those qualities be? How does Shakti in a man look like?
Yeah, I saw a couple just recently that come to my mind when you asked that, and it was like he was letting go more in his body than she was. She was staying a little bit more, you know, in her conscious mind, kind of judging, analyzing, and not letting go, not surrendering. And he was totally surrendering in his body and having a lot of life force move through him. So that's one expression when there's a lot of sensitivity, a lot of willingness to let go and go with the flow and not be in a controlling linear logical frame. So that's one way that it can look. But that doesn't mean if a man is like that he's too feminine or not masculine enough. It's like everyone's got to know themselves, especially underneath their conditioning. Like, who really are you at your unique essence? And whatever that is can be worked with in a beautiful way. But if we don't know that starting point of who really are you, what have you got to work with there? It's hard to find a harmonious counterpart for that, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So what I'm hearing is it's kind of, is it more a man that is in touch with his with his emotions, with his body,
yes,
right? And is able to navigate those emotions and surrender into those emotions without the reactive anger. I mean, like, I guess, men that, that react from anger or jealousy or anything like that, that's also surrendering to the emotion, I guess. But
yeah, that's right. That's without any stability inside.
Yes.
So
yes.
they really are lacking a strong inner masculine presence in themselves in that case. I haven't been talking so much about dysregulated expression so far. So if we go there, what a feminine man is in the unhealthy feminine expression in a man, he might have like no vision, no structure, and he's in, just say in a relationship, he's inviting someone into, I don't know what, like he doesn't really know what's going on. And maybe there's a sense around him of can't really feel the ground, there's not a sense of stability, and he might be pretty wayward with his emotions. And surprisingly to some people, this is a place that men can actually be quite violent, even if they appear quite feminine in some cases, like more feminine than some others. I mean, still a man, still masculine, but it's when there's too much space given to like indulging in the feminine traits and qualities and expressions, and not enough time spent in environments that really cultivate that purpose and inner stability and strength, that would be more healthy for them.
Right. Okay, cool. I was raised by, and I think a lot of our, client, there's quite a few of single women, single mothers in our container.
Right. Yeah.
My mother, for example, was a single mother, and she had 90% custody, right, over us. We'll go to dad's like maybe a couple of weekends here and there, and things like that. Now, my mother's authentic side is that she isn't a feminine, right? And she was raised that way back in Sri Lanka. She was raised that way, and and that's the mother that I love. That's the mother that's here now, right? And however, when she was going through a divorce, having to, be the provider, be the protector, having to maintain a household, she really stepped into a masculine.
Yes.
Right. And so many other single mothers out there that have to step into their masculine.
Yes.
But, going to a job, going to a career, for example, right? A lot of the careers out there expect your masculine to come out.
Yes.
Right. So majority of the careers out there and businesses out there, they want the masculine to come out, the structured, the grounded, the composed, as if leave your emotions at the door kind of stuff. Right. So she's spending 8 hours of work being in a masculine. She's coming home to two boys that are I don't know how she dealt with it, but she did. Right. Having to be both the father, the disciplinary, right, and then she really reflecting back, my mother really lost her feminine during that time. She lost a huge, and at the same time she lost a lot of her own identity.
Yes.
Right. Now, as I'm looking to single mothers here, as I'm working with a lot of single mothers here, the same is happening here as well. They've got to be the father, they've got to be the provider, they've got to be the mother, right? So what, how can we speak into that? How can we help, or how would you work with a woman that's a single mother that life expects her to be more in the masculine, or maybe that's a narrative that's being said?
Yeah, well,
right?
That's the thing. What if the starting point is questioning the narrative a little bit and really getting the power of language to shift that it must be or it has to be like that, to instead recognizing that might be like the overlay of the situation, but how do you want to be within it? If you don't want to deplete yourself and be constantly exhausted and be treading water in survival mode all the time, it might be helpful. And I'm not a single mother, by the way, and I've actually taken great care throughout my life to not be a single mother as well, because I know how difficult it is. My mother had another family, so I was present when she was having more babies, and I had no illusions about how difficult that was on one's own. But the softening inside, I mean, survival mode is survival mode, and women are doing their best and they're doing what they can. And I'm assuming that the women here in this program at least have enough capacity to be in this container with you and and therefore, the desire and the willingness to grow and to learn, and some time and space to explore that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that softening inside to recognize, and this is so tricky. This is so tricky. Shifting
It is very, very, very tricky balancing these two energies.
It really is. And there's such an obvious kind of victimization in the positioning of that configuration of being a single mother. There just freaking is. There's an argument there. It's difficult, it's challenging. And when there is that impulse to expand beyond that constricted place, and it does have to come from within. Otherwise, what I'm about to say might feel misattuned, or, like someone might be not ready to hear it. But to introduce the concept, it's really meeting self on the inside and softening your heart to the degree where you actually realize what created this outcome, and shifting from that survival mode or internal victimization mindset to an empowered place that allows you to make a massively significant, different future from that point onwards. And there needs to be a lot of care and a lot of support and a lot of holding to come to what I'm saying right now.
I love that you said that. I love that you said that, because like I was trained in Tantra. I was trained by Michaela. I can never say her last name properly, but Boehm, right?
Yeah.
She wrote the book Wild Woman's Way. One of the things that was taught to me is that the feminine will only start coming out when there is that safety, where is that security, when you're no longer in that survival state.
Yes.
Right. And that will start blossoming out. And what's required to get out of that is the growth, is the support, is the people, right, to really come out of that survival space. So, like, for example, when my mother was going through, like, domestic violence, right, when she was going through, the first brown person to get a divorce in Australia, right, well, with in our community anyway, right, like, that wasn't a safe time for her feminine to start coming out.
Sure.
Right. It was very much a survival, living above the poverty line. Right. It was basically that survival. So for the women out there, whether if they're single women or single mother or women, right, is the message first get out of survival before you can soften? Or is it by softening?
Yeah, it happens together. It happens kind of simultaneously. And part of what's, because I'm going to speak some nervous system terminology now, because I have a lot of somatic trauma therapy, somatic psychotherapy knowledge and practice behind me. So for the feminine nervous system to literally come out of survival mode, what's required is a lot of co-regulation, which means it's coming out alone.
Yes.
And it's not just because it's a nice thing to do, it's a requirement for the actual nervous system.
Yes. Right. I have a thing within our program, the sacred circle, right? So in the sacred circle, we all just jump in, and we can do this at any time using some of the platforms that we have. So in this sacred circle, this is basically you're just sharing what's in your heart. But you're not talking about other people. You're sharing it in I statements.
Yeah, brilliant.
So it's not an opportunity to say, oh, my wife did this and my husband did this. It's like, I feel X. I feel X. And what we're doing here is this term called co-regulation, right? For those of us that don't know what co-regulation is, okay, can you please educate us? Like, it's in the name. Can you help us understand the science that, like, when it comes to our nervous system, right, in the space of co-regulation?
Yeah, for sure. So firstly, there's something called self-regulation, where you can acknowledge where you are in your own nervous system reactions and responses. What a lot of therapists call the 4 Fs, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And
What's the
how
last
to
one?
fawn,
Fawned.
which is a way of the usual expressions of people pleasing.
Yep.
And in very acute situations, it's befriending a perpetrator and women more commonly do that because we don't have the physical strength to
Yes.
combat this situation. But yeah, the typical everyday scenario expression of fawn is emotional collusion, the people-pleasing behaviors that are very typical in women especially, but men as well. Yeah. So there's self-regulation where we can get to that place of presencing inside where are you in your nervous system and find ways to regulate, come back to nervous system stability, even if it's just for a time. And co-regulation is that happening, but with your nervous system and another person's nervous system. So say someone hopefully that has more stability than you in that moment, and they can offer that support and maybe guidance or at least presence. And that allows you to find stability with the support outside of yourself, which I know for a lot of women who really want empowerment, that's quite a head trip for them. And so say is co-regulation is not a failure to self-regulate.
Yes.
It's a requirement for health, healing, growth, evolution.
Yes. And the interesting thing about co-regulation, and I only discovered this through really understanding the term compassion. Now, compassion and empathy are very different. Empathy is seeing the world through another person's eyes. Now, compassion, however, and I think it was Brené Brown that actually taught me this, was compassion is the ability to, let's say, I'm sitting in the dark room. I've got all my blinds, like I'm in deep sadness or grief or something like that. You come to my house and you just see me sitting in the dark room, blinds closed, lights turned off. I'm just sitting in my own filth. Okay. The natural thing to do is like, what are you doing? Like, let me cheer you up. Like, open up the blinds, turn the lights on. Like, let's go watch something. Let's go do something. That's a very non-compassionate thing. Right. But compassion is the ability to basically sit with someone else in their darkness. Right. So talking about that, coming to my house and I'm grieving, instead of opening the blinds, turning the lights on, you actually just sit next to me in silence. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
But our nervous system is co-regulating.
Yes.
Right. And the power and this is the huge thing in like, these containers that we are building. Right. I mean, yes, each and every person in this growth container is there for their own self. They've come there because they need to grow or find a need or find solution or anything like that. The interesting thing is how we learn from each other.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I've got a men's group, I've got a women's group, and also the men's and women are like, on a weekly basis working with each other, and they're learning from each other's experiences. Right. And this whole movement of like, me against the world and, empowerment and, I can do it, I don't need anyone, both on men and women that are doing this. It's just like, well, you do, right?
Yeah.
We do. Right. We do. We're a pack species.
Yeah.
Right. We need to be able to connect and co-regulate. And sure, you don't have to worry about all of these titles. Like, you can definitely do life on your own, but we definitely do need to co-regulate and be there for each other. And this is the best part of being human, that we can do things on our own, but we don't need to.
Yes, totally. And that's a great way of describing one of the ways women can be over masculinized and not having healthy masculine inside, where there isn't the openness and the curiosity or vulnerability to be able to receive that level of care. And it's that I've got to do this myself, and that kind of misplaced warrior energy, not realizing that the quality of life without that interdependence is pretty detrimental to real feminine development.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So you do a lot of work with, female nervous system regulation, right? So is the male nervous system and the female nervous system different to each other?
Yes, but for the same reasons that I described before when we're talking about masculine, feminine energies,
Hmm.
it's because of what's highlighted in our biology, so our physiological functions and the
Hmm.
levels of sensitivity we each have to certain things because of that. That there's a difference in the male brain, literally, the anatomy and the
Hmm.
anatomy of a female brain. And
Yes.
so, of course, that mirrors in our nervous systems too. And yes, so one practical example is where, at least for men that have a lot of masculine or very predominantly masculine essence, they will probably thrive, at least for periods of time throughout their life, in environments where there's some level of pressure to really stay on target and to produce and, work towards a goal,
Yes.
you know, and
Yes.
where, yes, yes. But when women are running that energy through their bodies, through their physiology,
Mm,
through their nervous systems, it leads to collapse. It leads to
mm,
adrenal failure.
yeah.
I've worked with so many women that have tried their hardest to run that energy in corporate world.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
just so common. It's like it has an expiry date. It's going to fall down because it's unsustainable.
Yes. Right.
And it's
And
not
so,
because you can't handle it, it's because your body isn't designed to run energy in that way. And this is the whole trip of feminism, right? Like it's not really that we wanted empowerment to be the same as men. We want empowerment to have mutual respect, to be able to make our own choices, to be able to
yeah,
have our own financial sovereignty, things like that, but
yeah.
not to be like a man, literally.
Not to compete with men, no, or vice versa, men trying to compete with women. So for those women out there that are in roles or life situations or anything like that, where life is expecting them to put this certain energy that is different to how their nervous system is laid out, how would you regulate this? Like, what are some regulating strategies that we can actually? Okay, cool. I'm putting this energy through, right? I
Mm.
can't really change things right now, right? But I do need to process this energy.
Yes, yes. There's a lot of things that can be done on an inner body connection level. And I want to say the first thing is realizing the context is unhealthy, because it's when women over internalize what they're struggling with and thinking that it's some failure of them personally to perform in a certain way without taking into consideration that the context that they're trying to achieve in constantly 24/7 is not conducive to being able to stay regulated, and not just regulated, to thrive, to be in vitality.
Mm,
Because regulated is just the beginning, this is a starting point.
yeah, 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 yeah. Regulation is the starting point. Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
Right. So okay. And so, like, what would you say that are some practical ways to not just regulate, but to cultivate the feminine presence in everyday life?
Oh, well, that I've got like years worth of material to answer that question.
If you can sum it up in 30 seconds or less.
No, I mean like actual embodiment practices that take time to understand it and feel it in your body and implement it. But one easy thing that I recommend to women that are approaching this initially is to, whether you work from home or whether you work in an office, whatever,
Hmm.
to have a transition phase when you're coming home. Even if you're coming home by
Mm,
yourself and you don't have a partner, you don't have children, and if you do, there has to be a transition phase. So you are taking a pause and reconnecting with yourself and your body specifically, your breath, your feeling, your authentic expression, and really inhabiting your pelvis, especially as a woman, and feeling into that softness, feeling into that surrendered capacity so that you're consciously giving yourself permission to rest back into your feminine again.
Yes.
Because if there isn't that intentional moment to put down
the mask,
yes,
put down the
yes,
like the stress, the noise, the to-do list, to-be list. All right.
Yeah, right. To-be list. Yeah, for sure. And so if that doesn't happen, then the residue of the stress, it's either met with mind-numbing things like Netflix and whatever,
okay,
or it's maybe broadcasted outward to other people. So there's got to be sensual, tactile, sensory things, whether it's sense and, water is so powerful for purifying, and dance and movement, and especially presencing her lower body, because so much of the 9 to 5 is chest up, isn't it?
Yeah.
Head, very head orientated.
Yeah, no, definitely. Before, so I've got a couple of questions from our warriors that they've sent to me, both chat and from here. But there is a myth that I want to break, right here, right now. This whole myth with the feminine energy is weak because of this submissive and surrendering nature, right? And once upon a time when I was in my boy energy, right? I don't, me personally, I don't believe in toxic feminine, toxic masculine. I do not believe in that. It's because feminine and masculine, they're energies, they're divine energies, right? And they cannot be toxic. It's the absence of the masculine, the absence of the feminine is what's toxic, right? So that's my thing. What I was going back and saying, when I was in my boy energy, in other words, the absence of the masculine, right? I too believe that surrender is weak, right? I too believe that submission, or submissive is being weak. But when I learned what it actually meant, I'm like going, whoa, what level of security someone must have in themselves to be able to submit, right? Or to surrender. What level of personal strength that a person, self-confidence, courage, faith that a person needs to have in order to surrender and be submissive, right? So before we go into the questions, is there can you please help us understand this whole thing about submissive and surrender, please?
Do you mean especially in an intimate context or just generally, conceptually?
Can we go generally?
Okay.
Right, and then we can go into intimate.
Yeah. Okay. That can be the practical example. So a key word that I didn't say earlier, which is a really important one for the feminine principle, is magnetism. So electricity, magnetic energy, male, female, we predominantly have these energies in our bodies. We have both in our own bodies, but yes, so softness, submission, surrender is characteristics of magnetism. There's somewhere that you've got to be resting inside to soften. There's something that you've got to be letting go into to submit. And like you said, it takes a lot of internal strength to have certainty and have faith in that place. And when a woman is trying to do that and she hasn't developed that really healthy inner masculine autonomy, that is to her detriment, trying to be submissive, and especially to a man. This is not recommended. But with all of the confused polarity teachings out there, women get themselves into a lot of trouble with that.
So sorry, did I hear that correctly? If you do not have the inner strength, submissive and surrender is not an ideal place to be in. Did I hear that correctly?
On a relational level for a woman, say this is the practical example now, trying to be that ends up in slavery. I'm just going to be really
Yes.
blatant. Disempowerment.
Yes. So it's not the safety that she feels in the person alone. It needs to also be the safety that she feels in herself.
It's very much both. And because there are so many different scenarios and different people, I can only speak in generals, right? But say that a very safe man that is holding that level of presence where a woman can really let go, soften, surrender, be submissive, she's maybe learning how to feel into her own healthy masculine from his example. And by, in a different way, if a man is not in his heart and he's not truly safe, but he's got that, primal perpetrator energy in him, and there's a charge, there's magnetic charge in the space, erotic energy, she might also learn how to develop her healthy inner masculine, inner Shiva in this case, I like to say, because she's relating with someone who's crossing her boundaries or disrespecting her. And unfortunately, this is often the case where these are these initiatory experiences for a woman to wake that up inside of herself.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Thanks for clearing that up. Right. So moving on to the questions from our team is that I think we may have covered this a little bit, but if we can just land the plane with this one here, is that what does a unhealthy feminine and an unhealthy masculine look like in a woman?
Oh, a lot of different things. So I can only name a few of them in the moment. Unhealthy feminine in the woman, firstly.
Yep.
No structure, like a lot of creative energy, maybe a lot of creative ideas. These are the common ones that I see typically, by the way, and then there are many others that I'm not going to say too, but not having the follow through, not having enough stability to ground something. So the creative ideas and impulses are there, but the manifestation isn't. Or like too much receptivity and leaning on someone else in a way that is putting too much pressure on them and disempowering herself at the same time. So unhealthy feminine in this way, I'm talking about over, like there's an excess of yin feminine. And that's pretty common in spiritual women, actually.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of floating around and not a lot of commitment, energy to herself or anything, So it can be very lovely and attractive to an extent.
Yes.
And so going to the other one that I see commonly, too much masculine energy. So again, that's that forcing, striving, trying to find her value and her worth in external achievements. And this is psychically programmed in through education, through the hierarchical situation of society and financial pay rates and all of that. Women wanting to be independent and autonomous and intentionally or accidentally becoming over masculinized to try and have that autonomy. And it can also look like what I said before, this meddling, over mothering, so over nurturing, and the excess of that is actually essentially a masculine expression in a woman, because it's a doing energy, it's a fixing energy.
Yes.
So any woman listening who's ever done that to herself before, you get attracted to projects.
Yes. I'm just checking for time. We might have time for one more question from here. Okay. This is from one of our goddesses. How can I cultivate the ability to receive support and nurture myself when I often don't feel safe relying on others, especially when it feels like everyone is caught up in their own lives? It's a really important question. How do I soften into my feminine energy when I'm used to carrying everything on my own? Oh, this is such a good question, which is why I wanted to sneak this in.
Yeah. Firstly, I just have to say I feel you. And it's like there's no way around avoiding the vulnerability within this, actually. because to create deeper emotional bonds and connections so that there isn't this too isolated place as a static state to live from, which is not sustainable. So the vulnerability that it takes to let people know how you really feel, you know, and have time for them as well as them having time for you. So cultivating deeper emotional connection. And yes, there are a lot of people super busy and super distracted, but everyone needs that. And so it also takes some wisdom to know who to ask, and making sure that it's not a repeat of some, you know, looping in past trauma vortexes, for example. You know, asking something from the very people who can't provide it to you. That's a painful place to be. But it's a learning process as well, which comes from like the more regulation your nervous system is embodying, the more resourced you'll feel to reach out. But like I said, feeling that vulnerability and that is meant to be part of the process. You know, it's not like a downside of it. It's your own softening inside. It's your own, that reach out, you know, because will you be responded to the way that you want or when you want? You've got to let go and trust. And that takes a lot. It takes being ready to hold yourself no matter what, but also to allow more intimacy, you know, and this is a huge thing of the feminine, another major key word that I didn't say earlier.
Intimacy.
Whether it's emotional intimacy, sexual intimacy, you know, romantic intimacy, both, you know, so to have that with friends in your life, and say it's a single mother who, you know, doesn't want to be holding that male, running too much male energy through her own system. It's discerning firstly, and developing the trust to reach out to safe men, good men that can come and support you.
Yes.
And that's a huge journey, you know, because maybe not the father of the children or the romantic partner that you want is there, but there is still plenty of beautiful men. And letting them know that they're appreciated and letting them know that you care and that you have time for them is something that can cultivate beautiful connection.
Yes. I love this. And unfortunately, we are coming to the tail end. Guys, I am so sorry that I did not have the time to get through all of these questions. I will find a way, and most likely this will be covered within your goddess training. And if I can ask you, Devashi, if we can just let the goddesses in our group know, the warrior goddesses know, what are they in for over the next 6 months with you, right? Like, what are they going to be exploring? What are they going to be learning and evolving? Like, you know, if we can just give a bit of a trailer in what the next 6 months entails, that would be greatly appreciated.
Well, potentially everything that's been shared today is a trailer of what's to come, but taking it out of concept to the felt sense, because that's what I'm all about. And many of the things that I've spoken today, I don't expect anyone to just digest that conceptually, because a lot of it doesn't make sense until you've connected with it at an embodied level.
Yes.
And so primarily that's what I love to share with women, is that transition from understanding is important and it's helpful, but that alone isn't what changes things. It's what energies are we inhabiting in our bodies and how that opens new dimensional realities in your life for real. So this is about getting in touch with both your primal and cosmic energies. This is about really activating the power of your heart, activating your lady powers inside, not using them against yourself anymore, and learning how to bring out the best in men in general, men, like I said, community, not just like focusing on one man only, and experiencing yourself in that embodied female presence that naturally allows for harmonious, you know, new growth to happen. So that's on a relational level, but it's also on the cosmic level as well. So the more we really come to embody the feminine principle as best we can in our own unique expressions of it, because something I love about the women that I work with, there's no one type. You know, like in Ubud, Bali, which is the kind of area I live in, there's a very particular type. I'm not into that. I'm into a very diverse community, but everyone has their different strengths. And yeah, I love taking the time to help you translate this into your own experience. And so I'd actually love to hear all of your questions, ladies. And that can help me know how to best support you and focus on what's most alive in your life. Because I love that sense of, effectiveness, that I'm actually sharing something with you that matters, because that matters to me.
Yes. I love that. Okay, ladies, I hope you are all excited. This is going to be an epic 6 months. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing the transformation, and I'm looking forward to having another conversation with you, because I can tell you straight off the bat, I've probably only covered 25% of the conversation that I've I've written down, and also what was said to me. So hopefully we can make this happen again really soon. Just so for the listeners later on, how do people connect with you? What's the best way? What's the best way of finding out more about you, or if someone wants to work with you or anything along those lines? How do we do that?
Actually, I'm offering a free workshop this weekend on Saturday. And I'm going to be sharing a few ways to work with me on there. So even if you can't come, there's a replay as well. So that's a really great way to go a little bit deeper than just looking at an Instagram profile. And I'm about to change my Instagram name. So that might not be helpful to say, but currently it's Feminine Design, and I'm changing it back to Somatic Feminine.
Okay, cool. Excellent. So if you can't find Feminine Design, it will be at somatic feminine. All right.
Yeah.
Excellent. Right. Well, thank you so much for giving your time, and I'm looking forward to this next conversation that we're going to be having. And ladies, wishing you all the very best. You're obviously in very capable hands, and once again, thank you for your time.
Thank you all so much. Thank you.
I hope this episode really spoke to you. And if it did, don't just keep it to yourself. Share it with at least one person who you know that needs to hear this today. And more than that, talk about it. Have a connecting conversation about it. Because growth doesn't just happen by listening to it. It happens through reflection, challenge, and action. And if you're ready to take this deeper, to end the battles that are happening inside of you, to step into clarity, courage, and the peace of a warrior, then let's talk. Click on the link below or jump into www.unconventional.com.au. Unconventional spelled with a K, not a C. Book in a time, a free call, and let's have a conversation if this journey is right for you. There's absolutely no pressure to join. This is just a conversation to see how the warrior training can help you waken your gifts, your purpose, to overcome your limitations and fears. Until next time, keep doing the inner work. This world, this universe needs you and the greatness that's inside of you.